Some days, survival is the victory. I've been thinking about this lately, about the quiet heroism of simply making it through. About the days when you wake up and the only goal that matters is reaching the other side of the hours ahead. When getting through becomes not just enough, but everything. I hope that by the time we finish this gentle conversation, you'll understand why those days aren't failures. Why sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is nothing more than continue existing one breath at a time. You know those days, don't you? When everything feels just a little too heavy, a little too much. When your usual reserves feel depleted before you even begin. When the simple act of moving through your routine, making coffee, getting dressed, showing up where you need to show up, feels like walking through water. On those days, the voice in your head gets louder. The one that tells you that other people are thriving while you're barely managing. That you should be grateful, productive, present. That you should be using this time to grow, to learn, to become a better version of yourself. That just getting through isn't enough. You should be getting something out of it. But what if that voice is wrong? What if some days are meant to be survived, not conquered? What if the simple act of enduring is its own form of grace? I think we've lost touch with the profound wisdom of maintenance by showing up to your life without expecting anything from it in return, but tending to your basic needs without requiring those needs to be meaningful or inspiring or part of some larger journey of self-improvement. We live in a culture that treats every moment as potential. Potential for growth, for productivity, for transformation. But some moments aren't potential. They're just presence. Just the quiet work of continuing to exist when existence feels difficult. There's something we don't talk about enough. The energy it takes to simply be human. To process the constant stream of information, emotion, and sensation that comes with being alive. To navigate relationships and responsibilities and the 100 small decisions that make up any given day. To carry your history, your worries, your hopes, your disappointments, all while appearing functional to the outside world. It's exhausting, this basic work of being yourself. And on some days, that work takes everything you have. I want to tell you that those days aren't wrong. They're not signs that you're failing or falling behind or not trying hard enough. They're signs that you're human, and being human is sometimes very hard work. The beautiful thing about survival is that it doesn't require justification. You don't have to earn the right to struggle. You don't have to prove that your difficult day was difficult enough to warrant gentleness. You don't have to make meaning from your pain or find lessons in your exhaustion. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply persist without trying to transform your persistence into something more palatable, more productive, more inspiring. I've been learning that there is a difference between giving up and giving yourself permission to do less, between being lazy and being tired, between not trying and trying in ways that don't look like trying to anyone else. When you're just getting through the day, you're not doing nothing. You're doing the invisible work of maintenance. You're keeping the lights on in your inner world when everything feels dark. You showing up to your responsibilities even when showing up is the hardest thing you can imagine doing. That's not nothing. That's everything. The problem is that we've been taught to measure our days by their output, their achievements, their contribution to some larger narrative of progress. But what if some days aren't about progress? What if they're about preservation? What if the story of your life includes chapters where the plot doesn't advance, where the only thing that happens is that you continue to exist? Those aren't empty chapters. Those are the chapters that teach you who you are when everything else is stripped away, when you can't perform or achieve or impress, when all you can do is breathe and wait and trust that tomorrow might feel different. There's dignity in that kind of endurance. There's strength in the decision to keep going when keeping going feels impossible. There's courage in the simple act of not giving up, even when you don't know what you're not giving up on. I want you to know that if today was one of those days, if all you managed was to make it through, that's enough. If you did unlearn anything or grow from anything, or accomplish anything beyond the basic work of existing, that's enough. If you were gentle with yourself instead of productive, if you rested instead of pushed, if you survived instead of thrived, that's enough. Let me share what I've learned about finding peace in the days that ask nothing more of you than your presence. First, recognize that maintenance is sacred work. Your body needs food, water, rest, movement. Your mind needs quiet, routine, familiar comforts. Your spirit needs gentleness, patience, permission to move slowly. Meeting these needs isn't selfish or basic. It's the foundation that makes everything else possible. On the days when maintenance is all you can manage, you're doing the most important work there is. Second, let survival be your only goal. Not growth, not productivity, not progress. Just making it through with as much kindness toward yourself as you can muster. Set the bar low enough that you can step over it instead of having to jump. Sometimes the goal is just to be in bed by evening, having made it through another day of being human. That's a worthy goal. That's a complete accomplishment. Third, stop apologizing for your limitations. You don't have to justify why you need to move slowly today. You don't have to explain why you're not at your best. You don't have to promise that tomorrow will be different. Your energy is finite, your capacity is real, and your need for gentleness is valid. You can honor your limitations without treating them as failures. Fourth, find the small mercies. On difficult days, everything good might feel small. A cup of tea that tastes right, a moment of stillness, a text from someone who cares, the fact that you don't have to make any major decisions right now. These aren't consolation prizes for a day that didn't go as planned. They're gifts that only become visible when you stop demanding more from your experience. Fifth, trust the rhythm of your own seasons. Some days you bloom, some days you rest. Some days you barely make it through. This isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you are alive, and life includes both expansion and contraction, both growth and dormancy. Your difficult days aren't deviations from your path. They're part of it. The truth is, some of your most important days might be the ones where nothing important happens. The days when you practiced existing without agenda, when you learned that you could be present to difficulty without having to solve it. When you discovered that your worth isn't dependent on your output, your mood, or your ability to turn every experience into a learning opportunity. Those days teach you something that the productive days couldn't, that you are enough exactly as you are, even when you're not at your best. That love doesn't have to be earned through achievement. That your value doesn't fluctuate with your energy levels. I think about the days when just getting through felt like failure, and I realize now that those were some of the most courageous days of my life. Not because I overcame anything or learned anything or grew from anything, but because I chose to keep existing when existence felt difficult. Because I trusted that the difficulty was temporary, even when I couldn't see past it. That trust, the faith that you can survive whatever you re-surviving, is its own form of wisdom. It's the knowledge that you've made it through difficult days before, and you have whatever it takes to make it through this one too. You don't have to be grateful for the hard days. You don't have to find meaning in them or learn from them or use them as fuel for future growth. You just have to get through them, and getting through them is enough. Sometimes enough looks like extraordinary achievement. Sometimes it looks like basic maintenance. Sometimes it looks like survival. All of these are valid ways to spend a day. All of these are worthy ways to be human. The days when you're just getting through aren't the days you're supposed to overcome. They're the days you're supposed to survive. And survival, when it's hard, is its own form of triumph. If you're in a season of just getting through, if you're tired of feeling like survival isn't enough, this channel is for you. Subscribe if you want to rest in a space where endurance is honored, where maintenance is sacred, and where some days just making it through is the most beautiful thing you can accomplish. Because the world needs people who understand that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply continue to exist. who know that persistence, even when it's quiet and invisible, is its own form of strength, who trust that getting through is enough, and that enough is everything.